Richician!
Hey YouTube, Richician84 here, and welcome to the last in the series of my top hated cards. I'm not going to cover rituals and links, because, well, there's hardly any rituals and links that I hate in the game. I mean, there are, but it's less than 5. I mean, maybe that could change in the future, we'll see. And I'm not going to go over my hated banned cards. Well, it's just basically another way of having a discussion about banned cards, and I hate banned card discussions because all they ever do is just result in arguments, even arguments that get out of hand. And I hate that, so yeah, I'm not going to cover those. But what I will do at some point is a redo of my top love-hate cards, basically cards that I like using myself or don't mind using myself, but hate when they're used against me. I mean, it was requested a while ago, and I will do that at some point, but for now I'm counting down my top 10 hated trap cards. Traps that I wish just never existed, and boy, there's a lot of traps that I hate, but I was only able to fit in 10, so I'm gonna give dishonourable mentions to some of them before I start, like Prank Kids Plan, because I hate prank kids. This is one of the reasons why. Just weakening my monsters just like that. Dark Lord Enchantment as well, which is basically brain control in trap card form for Dark World. I've been robbed of victory too many times by it. It's just infuriating in that matchup. Karma Cut as well, which is one of the cheapest cheap shot banish cards in the game, but even though it's worse than Bottomless and Deep Prison, I've not encountered it that much, and it does require a discard, whereas the others can be activated for free. And Magician's Combination, the only other Dark Magician support card that I hate. The other one, of course, being Dragoon, because like, it negates anything and everything, and I refuse to play it myself. That's really all there is to it. But yeah, again, of course, I don't mean any offence to anyone who plays any of these traps that I've talked about, including the dishonourable mentions. I'm just simply explaining why I hate them, so much so that I wish they were never made. And there's not really a lot of ways to counter them, and even if there are, that doesn't mean you're guaranteed to see them. With that being said, let's begin. Number 10, Time Pendulum Graph. Now, as you probably already know, I hate pendulum magicians, and this is one of the reasons why. Like it's bad enough that it's both an OTK deck and a lockdown deck, or control deck. Personally, I don't see much difference regarding what kind of deck Pendulum Magician is, but yeah, this is a very disruptive card. It's basically Scrap Dragon in trap form that works on either player's turn. It's popping a card at any time. Like, it's so fucking annoying, like, especially when it's used in combination with Purple Poison Magician. And even if it doesn't destroy 2 cards, it still sends something away, just like that, and it doesn't even target. Well, the destruction effect targets, but the Centre of the Graveyard one doesn't. just infuriating. It's one of those cards in the matchup that made my life a misery. It stopped seeing play when Double Iris got banned, thankfully, but now the card's come back and it gave the deck more to do. Fuck this card. It's so disruptive that it might as well be another card that says you can't play Yu-Gi-Oh! That's all there is to it. Number 9, Cosmojo. Now, as you know, Cosmo is another deck that I hate. Now, if it's not OTKing me or causing me to get stuck behind untargetable beat sticks, there's this card which just banishes my cards from the field or in the graveyard. So it's their own cheap shot banish card, and obviously destroying a Cosmo for cost is nothing to give up, considering they float for each other. There's just no minus again, whereas I just lose one of my cards, and it doesn't even target, which is fucking bullshit. It's so fucking cheap. I hate it. Yeah, there's just nothing about Cosmo to like. But that's my opinion. To hell with Cosmo, including this card. Number 8, Dimensional Prison. A long time hated trap card of mine, because it's another cheap shot banish card. Basically the new Sakuratsu armor. In fact, it kind of took Sakuratsu armor's place when Stardust Dragon came into the game, because it's been seeing play as a way just to get rid of it. Which is clever, I will say that, but again, it's a cheap shot banish card, especially when it's used on either Dark Magician or Elemental Hero The Shining, because with The Shining I don't get to use its second effect because it didn't go to grave, and I hate being denied The Shining's effect, but it's even worse if it's used on Dark Magician because it's my favourite card, an ace monster, and banishing it is just a cheap way to get rid of my favourite card, and I don't take kindly to that at all. I swear people try and banish my Dark Magician just to piss me off, whether it's through this card, Bottomless, Gaius, DD Crow. What did Dark Magician ever do to you? But thankfully, this card practically doesn't see play anymore. Probably because it's a card that targets, and battle traps don't see much play nowadays. Well, except in casual decks. Yeah, it's even so. This is still a card that left a bad taste in my mouth. I despise this card and wish it was never made. Number 7, Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. Kinda random, I know, but it's one of those cards that basically stops me from drawing a new card. This was basically considered the new Time Seal, and of course it's Riser the Storm Monarch in trap card form. Now, sure, they don't exactly say skip your opponent's next draw phase, but they might as well, due to the fact that both cards stack a card on the field on top of the deck, which just stops me from drawing a new card and stops me from being able to fight back, or at least fight back easily, and I hate being denied drawing a new card. I hated it when it was played in pretty much everything, plus it was an extra annoyance in Burning Abyss when they were big in the meta. Not that I hate Burning Abyss, like, at least by themselves, but it was still annoying. Fuck this card, seriously. Bullshit card and bullshit, but then again, in more recent years, it kind of stopped seeing play. When, regardless of whether Burning Abyss was still meta or not, that I haven't seen it played in a deck for like 7 or 8 years now, as far as I know. I guess some past format decks can play it too. But I guess because it targets, it's not favourable? Is that even a word? Still, bullshit card is bullshit. I hate it. Wish it was never made. Number 6, Solemn Warning. Because there have been too many times where it either stopped me from being able to go off, or it robbed me of victory, especially late game. Like when I've worked so hard to get one of my best monsters onto the field, only to have the summon negated, just like that. And then there's just this overwhelming loss of hope, plus the annoyance that I've been robbed of victory, and that's just what this card did. And then there was the fact that people were making the mistake of thinking it could negate fusion summons when it can't, and of course the reason why it can't is tricky to explain. Some know this ruling, some don't, but it's because the card, like Monster Reborn, Polymerization or whatever, is still resolving, and you can't interrupt the resolution of a card, nor can you interrupt a chain. So it's another way of saying it misses the timing. And like, some have argued that they can, some have just accepted it and said, fine, negate the polymerization then, which pisses me off because now the opponent knows that I have the fusion materials in hand, so they've just gained some knowledge that they shouldn't have, therefore giving them an unfair advantage, all because they don't know how their own fucking card works. This has also happened with things like Solemn Judgment, Solemn Strike, Thunder King, and the Horn of Heaven cards. So annoying. I mean, that's really all there is to it. Yeah, it's just pissed me off so much that I refuse to use it myself. Like, I'd much rather use Solemn Judgment or Solemn Strike. I mean, technically, Solemn Warning can stop a little bit more than Strike. It's hard to say about Solemn Judgment, although I will say that there have been times, regardless of whether I've been in this duel, I've been watching a duel, where players have made the mistake of getting this confused with Solemn Judgment, and they try to stop something like Regeki. It's like, the conversation goes like, Regeki, Solemn Warning, you can't. Yes, I can. He said, no, you can't. It only negates summons or effects that include summons. Like, wait, when a monster would be summoned, or when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated and that negates an effect that's special like, I mean, to be fair, I'm sure, you know, we've all made this mistake, I'm sure. I mean, I personally haven't, but I guess they do look kind of similar, so like it's easy to get the two of them mixed up. So can't really fault them, but like at the same time, read your damn cards. Number 5, Bottomless Trap Hole. Another long time hated trap of mine. Like I've hated this card for years. I mean, it's technically worse than Deep Prison because it doesn't target and can be. Actually, I don't know. Maybe they're as bad as each other. But yeah, it's one of the cheapest cheap shot banish cards in the entire game, and I hate it. Because it gets rid of good monsters just like that, with no cost, no drawback. And just like with Deep Prison, I particularly hate it when it's used on Dark Magician and The Shining, as it just denies me being able to use The Shining's effect, whereas it's a cheap way to get rid of Dark Magician, like my favourite card, an ace monster. Like I will not tolerate having my Dark Magician banished. It's such a cheap way to get rid of him. And I also hate that this is searchable through what's the name of that Trap Tricks monster called? I can't remember, but it's the one that searches for a trap hole trap, along with the fact that Reflesia can activate it from the deck. And it was just annoying, like in the Trap Tricks matchup, where what is the name of the searcher for it? This is bugging me now. Where like the searcher just always searches it out and sets it along with some other back row, and it's like, great, I can't really make a move now without one of my best monsters getting banished. It's just infuriating, and it just makes the deck not fun to play against. Even when this card was limited, or semi-limited, it was just a nightmare knowing that it's just there, ready to be used at any time. And I wish this fucker just stayed limited. Yeah, it's just brought me so much pain and misery in the past. Thankfully, it's hardly seeing play nowadays, well, except in Trap Tricks decks of any kind, like including Hat. But it can see play in past format decks as well, which is just infuriating. Number 4, Macrocosmos, another cheap shot banish card that I hate so much. Like, I've hated this card since day one. Well, close enough to day one, because like I said about D-Fissure, it didn't bother me that much at first, because my Dark Magician deck could still play under it. Not so much when I started playing Prismagician and Rainbow Neos, and I just auto-lost to it. As I can't play without a graveyard, which is annoying, because as I said before, a few times already, I play decks that rely on the graveyard, and I like having a graveyard, and I want to be able to use my graveyard so I can play the game, but I couldn't if Macro was on the field, and let me tell you, Macro decks just made my life a misery back in the day. Like, once upon a time, this, along with Gladiator Beasts, was one of my most hated decks in the entire game, and I wanted something done about it on the ban list, but nothing ever happened until the September 2013 list came along, and this card and D-Fissure got limited, and I was like, yes! And I was just jumping for joy and dancing on the graves of macro decks, because with both macro and D-Fissure limited, the deck was dead, basically, although some players still tried to play it anyway, but I feel like it's kind of hard to play with just one copy of each, and fingers crossed and touch wood that macro and D-Fissure stay banned forever. Not banned, limited. Sorry. Mind you, this and D-Fissure did see play in Ritual Beast decks, which was just annoying. But other than that, they didn't see play, and yeah, hopefully it'll stay that way, because I do not want to deal with full power macro, like, ever again. Fuck that deck and everything it stands for. Number 3, Anti-Spell Fragrance. Another degenerate generic floodgate. Like, fuck this card. Like, I hated it back in the day when spell canceller decks were a thing, and I hate it now because spell heavy decks just auto lose to it. Like, not quite in the same way as Imperial Order, but still, spell heavy decks just auto lose to it, and it just slows the game down too much, and I hate it a lot. And yeah, as you know, I play spell heavy decks, and it's just impossible to play if I can't play my spells, even if it's just for 1 or 2 turns. Bullshit card is bullshit. Like, it was just an extra annoyance as well. Whenever I'd play against Paleozoic Frog, Altergeist, True Draco, or some other form of anti-meta, or if it gets sided against me, which is fucking annoying. Now, again, you could argue it's a necessary evil against things like Pendulum Magician, Endymion, Trickstar, Sky Strikers, but again, to me, it's just pure evil. Like, why should everyone else suffer? And here's another thing that annoys me. Like, I would used to look up videos on YouTube for ways to be able to beat annoying spell-heavy decks like Trickstars, Pendulum Magicians, Endymion, and this card would always come up as a main suggestion, which just annoyed me. Not only because I hate the card, but also because even if I don't hate anti-spell, I can't play it in any of my decks. Because like I said, I play spell-heavy decks as well, and this card is a double-edged sword that would hurt me as well. Like, as annoying and degenerate as the card is, it's also one that can backfire. So yeah, I wouldn't play it even if I don't hate it. Number 2, There Can Only Be One. Now, it's another card that I already talked about in my top 10 hated card list, but here it is again, and it's another floodgate which fucking pisses me off. Like, whether it's being played in some competitive decks or hand decks. As like I said before, monsters based on one monster type auto lose to it, and near enough every single deck I have falls into that category. And like I said before, there's only 3 decks I have which this doesn't hurt. Evil Heroes, Highlander Yuya, and Normal Pendulum. That's literally it. Whereas everything else, like Dark Magician, Heroes, my Dragon decks, Cyburst, just struggle and auto-lose. It's just impossible to be able to play with this card out. Yeah, it's a floodgate that's made my life a misery, over the last year or so. Fuck this fucking card. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I don't play in tournaments anymore, and why I don't like playing against hand decks anymore. Because what's the point if this card is going to pop up and just stop me from being able to play? But yeah, again, there's nothing I can say about it that I haven't said already. Number 1, Trickstar Reincarnation is my most hated trap in the game, because fuck Trickstars. I've hated the deck since day 1, purely because this card and Lycurus exist, 3 of each, plus Light Stage and maybe Dark Room of Nightmare, makes it a trolly OTK burn deck. And I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. And it's a cheap shot banish card as well. So cards in my hand get banished and I can't get them back, and I take lots of damage. And it's just made my dueling life a misery. Like this and Lycurus are the problem cards, and in my opinion both cards should have been banned ages ago, just so they can't win in a cheap way and have to, do something different. It just pisses me off that this deck never got hit when it was meta. Sure, Light Stage got hit 2 years after it came out, but that was just to stop Orcust more than anything. I mean, I'd like to say that the deck did lose some consistency, but the thing is, this card is still at 3, and so is Lycurus, and so is Candina, which can search for any Trickstar card in the deck, including the 1 Light Stage. I mean, I know it's a 2 now, but still, I'm not even happy that it's a 2. Yeah, Trickstars are just horrible to play against. How can anyone enjoy such a horrible deck? They're just not fun to play against, and for a while, this was my most hated deck in the entire game, until Light Stage got limited, and then Herald of Perfection decks just got put back up to the top as my number 1 hated deck. I'd say Trickstars are still in the top 10 somewhere. Regardless, Trickstars are just horrible, and I never want to play against them again. I mean, Lycurus by itself is bad enough, but Reincarnation is just horrible, even if it doesn't have its own burn effect. God, can you imagine if it did? That would make it even more horrible, and then it would have to get banned. I mean, you could argue that banning Reincarnation and Lycurus would make the deck unplayable, but I don't give a shit. Trickstars deserve to be made unplayable. Fuck that deck and everything it stands for, including this card. Um, yeah, and I know for a fact that I'm not the only one who feels that way about Trickstars. Like, they are horrible. It's an archetype that should never have been made. I don't care if one of the main characters in Brains used it. Like, the deck is an overpowered, degenerate piece of shit. And yeah, those are my hated traps, and that concludes the hated cards series. So thanks for watching. I mean, like I said before, whether or not you agree with me about any of these cards is up to you, of course. If you agree, cool. If you don't, fair enough, that's your opinion, but rather than argue about it, let's just agree to disagree and move on with our lives. Anyway, thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll catch you guys later. See ya. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the Richician YouTube channel.